love now and
Did you fall in love? Just tell I love her.
Love was stronger than anything.
You feel the love?
And I love you more than anything.
There's still love. Love.
From the New York Times, I'm Anna Martin. This is Modern Love. And today, Christi Clancy's full Modern Love essay. Christi is a spin instructor, and one weekend she was teaching her class just like every other weekend when in walked someone who she was not prepared to see. Her best friend's ex-husband. He'd left her best friend for another woman, causing a ton of pain. Christi decided to punish this guy in the best way she knew how, by putting him through the hardest workout of his life. Here's Christi reading her essay, Revenge of the Friend.
They kissed. Nobody kisses in spin class. A room full of sweaty people panting on top of steel bikes is no place for romance. And it's certainly no place for my friend's ex-husband to show up with his girlfriend, the woman he'd left my friend for. It was just a few weeks into the new year, and I had a packed class of weekend warriors perched on their saddles waiting for me. My friend's ex-husband was the last person I expected to see. In the 2 years since they'd split up, I'd gone out of my way to avoid him. But here he was, looking as ridiculous as most middle-aged men do in tight Lycra shorts. I couldn't have imagined a better scenario to let him have it. I had a microphone strapped around my head and a captive audience. The problem was, I used to like him. I attended his children's baptisms and helped plan his 40th birthday party. We had spent countless hours together drinking wine and commiserating about raising children, long Wisconsin winters, and interrupted sleep. He could be charming. And that morning, his familiar charm disarmed me before I could remind myself that I wasn't supposed to like him anymore. My smile was a reflex that he misinterpreted as a welcome. A small woman with a tight ponytail and a toothy smile walked in and stood next to him. He introduced her as his quote-unquote friend. It was hard for me to reconcile this flesh and blood woman with the home-wrecking diva I'd imagined the past few years. She seemed so harmless and normal. We decided to give spinning a try, he said. Can you help us get set up? We? Us? What could I do? I led them to a pair of bikes. Their presence had thrown me, but I've taught spin for over a decade, so I could still mindlessly check their settings and offer instructions. She must have known who I was because she went out of her way to kill me with kindness. I wanted her to stop chirping so I could wrap my brain around the fact that she was in my class. Then he called her sweetie, the same thing he used to call my friend when she was his wife. I snapped back to attention, shut the door, dimmed the lights, and cranked up the music. I got on my bike and looked out at my class. I usually love teaching on Saturday mornings, but now I was distracted and unsettled, remembering how he'd initiated their split. They were drinking coffee on their front porch when he said, "I'm leaving," and I don't want to work things out. He was apologetic but firm. Didn't take long for him to confess there was someone else. My husband warned me not to judge, but I couldn't help it. If this could happen to them, could it happen to us? Their breakup made everything I considered solid seem vulnerable, like a bone riddled with stress fractures. In the aftermath, my friend couldn't sleep or eat, and she worried constantly about their children and her finances. To make matters worse, a year or so after they split, she was given a diagnosis of cancer. There were other spin classes and other instructors. Why had they come to mine? Did he think this would make things normal again? Was he cruel or clueless? I tried to focus. I followed my plan, leading us up some imaginary hills and sprinting past invisible riders. I was just getting my groove back when I looked up and saw him lean toward her, and there it was. The kiss. That's when I decided that if they came back to my class next week, I would be ready.
We'll be right back.
The next Saturday, I showed up early. My regulars filed in with towels and water bottles, barely awake, and then, sure enough, they walked in. They were holding hands, wearing big smiles, and matching powder blue jerseys. "Good morning," said Mr. Spin Class Kisser, looking fresh and robust. I led the lovers towards the middle row of bikes. The easiest bikes have big, comfortable seats and adjustable resistance. The toughest are the pro bikes with narrow, hard saddles and fixed gears. When the pros first arrived, I found them so difficult to ride that I thought they must be broken. Even after training on them for months, the longest I could stand up out of the saddle without losing control or combusting was about a minute. So naturally, that's what I set him up on. The lights on the bike's computer flickered on, showing watts, kJs, HRs, RPMs, numbers I knew meant nothing to him. He looked confused. "Oh, you'll love this," I said. I put his girlfriend right next to him on a bike so gentle she may as well have had a straw basket with flowers attached to the handlebars. Then I turned away and cued the music. I like making themed playlists for my classes. Irish music for St. Patrick's Day, songs about food for Thanksgiving. I've got playlists for rain, snow, summer, peace, and revolution. For this occasion, I created a new playlist, Music for Cheaters. Songs like Rihanna's Unfaithful, Jules' Till It Feels Like Cheating, and some classics, Heard It Through the Grapevine, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, and Tempted. I know spin instructors have a reputation for being sadistic, but I never saw myself that way. I tell people to ride at their own pace and take breaks. But that morning, I offered no such assurances. 30-second sprint out of the saddle, I barked. "Go, grab it, nail it," whatever it was. "Come on, hammer it. Your legs should be like egg beaters. Boil your quads." I got off my bike and walked around the room, lingering behind the lovers to make them feel my presence. I watched sweat drip onto the floor around his bike, so much that I could practically see my reflection in it. I thought of my friend's quivering hands and pained expression when she told me about their breakup. I thought of the hours I'd spent with her in the clinic while the chemo pumped into her arm, and the nights I slept at her house when she didn't want to be alone. It didn't seem fair that she had to suffer so much while her ex seemingly got everything he wanted. I'd like to think I was doing this for my friend, but this was my own revenge. I hadn't even told her about them showing up at my class. I didn't want to hurt her, and honestly, I'm not sure she would have even cared. She and her ex had reached a certain peace I found hard to imagine. I wouldn't go so far as to say they were friends, but they got along well enough. I knew I was acting childish and petty. He hadn't left me. But it felt as if he'd broken a pact we had made as couples. After 2 years of biting my tongue, this felt necessary and cathartic. I got back on my bike and watched as he strained, his face red and his hair drenched, but he was managing. I almost couldn't believe it. I don't think either of them paid any attention to the lyrics I'd so carefully selected. At the end of class, I turned down the music and led some stretches. The spinners wiped down their bikes and drank from their water bottles. Okay, so I hadn't broken him, but I was still feeling pretty pleased with myself. Until he walked up with a towel around his neck and gave me a pat on the back with his large, damp hand. "I gotta tell you," he said, "that was the best workout I've had in a long time." "Oh, it was wonderful," said his girlfriend. "We loved it." A few weeks later, I met my friend for a glass of wine. Her hair used to be straight, but it had grown back curly and looked nice that way. Her cancer had been caught early, and she had a good prognosis. I decided to tell her what I'd done, or at least tried to do. As I told her the story of my clever playlist and punishing routine, She listened with an expression that seemed to be a mix of curiosity and horror. When I stopped talking, she didn't say anything at first. I worried I'd hurt her or that she disapproved. Then I saw a small smile tug at the side of her mouth. "You're a good friend," she said.
If you want to hear my conversation with Christi Clancy, you can find it in the Modern Love podcast feed. If you have a story that you want to share with us, we'd love to hear it. We're always looking for good stories and new perspectives for the Modern Love column, no matter where you come from or who you are. To find out how to submit your own story, go to nytimes.com/modernlovesubmission. Modern Love is produced by Julia Botero and Christina Josa. It's edited by our executive producer, Jen Poyant, with help from Annabelle Bacon, Riva Goldberg, and Emily Lang. This episode was mixed by Daniel Ramirez. Our show was recorded by Maddie Masiello. The Modern Love theme music is by Dan Powell. Digital production by Nel Gologli. Special thanks to Paula Schumann. The Modern Love column is edited by Daniel Jones. Mia Lee is the editor of Modern Love Projects. I'm Anna Martin. Thanks for listening.